I thought was just, I have this character, I think you've seen her, Mean Mama, and she's kind of like like she's like a devil angel. She's the devil angel trope.
Sarcastic.
She's sarcastic, and she digs into me and digs into other people. But what she was saying, and I was imagining myself looking into the coffin, and she's just like, $10, he's faking. And that is my dad's humor. That's not even my humor,
right.
Out the gate, like that's my father.
Yeah. Welcome to 6 Train Therapy. I'm DJ Mayday. As you may notice, we don't have any Professor S, but in his stead, we have the very talented, very special Jen Crute.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about something that I think every human being goes through. Yeah, every human being goes through it one way or the other. We're going to talk about loss and grief and how to deal with grief. And it's tough. We all know that's tough, right? Like we all know what it's like to be without. Even if you haven't lost a person, you've had a loss of a job or failed in school, or one way or the other, you've had some kind of loss, or loss of a pet even. That recently happened with a friend of mine. But, everybody goes through it differently. And one of the things, like in doing the research, one of the things that I was trying to do was, in 6 Train Therapy, we always try to find the why and then what we can do. I mean, I guess this is like the greatest, nothing can be done. You have to go through the process. And that process is different. I also found that there's really no stages in grief, which is interesting.
Well, there's stages. It's just that
they're different for everyone.
They can show up at any time and in any, you think you went through the first one, so you're like, I'm done. Right. But no, that might circle back around and get you again.
Right, so, right. And that was the thing. That was the thing in doing the research too. Is it literally was saying that, everybody passing through grief is very different, and it can come back around. That intense feeling can come back around years later. Yeah. So it's like, I've been blessed up to this point, being, a gentleman of a certain age, and I haven't gone, that's one way to put it.
Sure, that's one way.
I haven't lost anybody close to me, and I thank God, and I shouldn't even be saying that out loud, but I haven't had that experience. Everyone I've lost has been like a cousin or an uncle or, a grandparent when I was younger, so I haven't fully gone through that kind of immense loss, but people close to me.
Right, but you just had an experience as an adult.
Yes. So. It was my cousin passed, and this is the funny thing, because a lot of my memory of my cousin was in my youth, so it was all about when I was younger. I really don't have any, recent memories with him. And at first when I heard the news, I was like, oh my God, that's terrible, that's sad. But I wasn't, I wasn't knocked down.
You went through the motions of okay, let me figure out how to process that information.
Well, no, I gotta be honest with you, it didn't knock me down. It didn't roll me over, you know what I mean? It wasn't until a day later.
Oh, okay.
Until I really started thinking about the impact of him in my life.
Right.
How influential he was in my life, that I started, feeling grief and sadness, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, I can understand that feeling too, because when my mom passed away a few years ago, and why do I say passed away? I say that respectfully, but I'm like, she died. Yeah. And, that's a tough one for me, the language, because I'm like, that doesn't feel like what happened. She didn't pass away. She died. That's the impact that it has for me. But to your point of, not processing the information, when the nurse from the hospice called me and they said, hey, I think it's time, because nurses know, they see all the signs. And I was like, okay, these are the things I have to do. And I just went into like this automatic, like,
survival mode almost, kind of a little bit?
no, not survival mode, I guess, just like, okay, what do I have to do? What are the list of things I have to do? I have to get out of this house, get dressed, get on the bus, get on the train, do all these things. And I had a moment, it didn't really impact me that, oh, today my mother's gonna die. But I had a moment while I was sitting on the subway and I was like, okay, I'm on the train. And then I was just sitting there and I was like, I wonder if anyone knows I'm about to go watch my mom die right now. And then the next moment I was like, everyone else on the train is probably having one of those moments, but it didn't hit me. That was like the first tear of that hitting me, like, oh my God. And then it, like you said, the few days that went by, it starts to,
like the memories start trickling in.
Yeah,
and then
because you got time to think.
Not only that, but you it was weird. Even though I didn't spend like time with him, recently, because he lives in Nashville, I lived in New York. But we spent more time when I was a youth. I started reflecting the points in my life that he affected me. And how that kind of formed who I was today. He was an older cousin, so he was the guy who put me on to like drawing and music, and like he was like influential in that. He inspired me to kind of be an artist, and that's what I do now. So it just started kind of like full circle, like really coming, how much he did influence me. You know what I mean? I felt like I needed to, give that like its respect and place in, my head and my mind and my heart.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was weird. It was weird that it kind of, that delayed reaction, but it goes to what they were saying, the stages of grief, that there aren't really any stages discernible. Everybody's stages are different, right? So like you've had like, what most people would consider like a horrific situation where you've lost both your parents, not only your mother, but also your father passing.
Right, my father first, and then my father died, and then 2 months after, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And I just didn't even get a chance to take a breath. And, it was wow.
I mean, I was around you during those days.
Yeah.
I know. I was like,
thanks for your support, man.
Yeah, but it was also,
weren't there.
Yeah, but even beyond that, it was cataclysmic watching it from the outside. Like,
yeah,
and there's really not a lot you can do. But we don't get a lot of instruction on how to like prepare for those moments, right? Like, there's no playbook really.
No, and I got the feeling that, the people around me were like, even though they, loved me or didn't know me, but they're like, what's wrong with you? If you don't know what's going on, it's like, what's wrong with her? And
but even
like,
if you do know, you still don't want to get close to the center of that,
I felt like the Grim Reaper walking around my office, just like, I got to fill out this paperwork.
About death.
Put down my site. Just, that's just how I felt. And, we don't, there's nothing really set in place other than, you get a week off from work.
Right. I mean,
it's like it didn't take a week to get to a place where I felt, almost okay again. But it took a while. So yeah, there's no space.
There's no space. There's no game plan. I mean, I guess there is in a sense, like the classic, how Western, we'll okay, we need to throw a funeral. We need to have a funeral. We need to do we need to do all this stuff, a burial and all this stuff. The different cultures do it differently, right? So, but what was interesting about my cousin's, I guess, funeral and celebration, because that's what it was. And this was the first time I've ever experienced that. Like the first time I ever went to a funeral, I must have been about 13 years old, was my uncle. And then...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was my uncle.
So, and then you went from funeral to adult, a celebration of life.
Well, no. My uncle had passed. This was when I was a kid, 13, and that was the first time I ever saw, someone who had died.
Okay.
And I remember seeing, that's not them. First off, that's not them, and I don't ever want to see that again.
Yeah, embalming is terrible. I think it's terrible.
So I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to ever do that again. I don't want to ever be around that. Like, I know I don't want to do that. And ever since then, no matter what funeral I wind up having to go to, you know, it's like, I still don't want to go, especially if I knew them, I don't want to go. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see the body because I don't know. It's just not them.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not them. It's just not them. You know, so it's interesting, and it kind of shaping how, you know, I know this is probably one of the grimmest like episodes we ever done, but actually I feel like this is a thing where we need to kind of prepare our minds for it a little bit, especially if you're an adult, you know, because you're going to come in contact with these situations.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't say that this is grim. I actually like that you asked me to do this because I'm experiencing things that I didn't think I would, like the kind of ease of like really having some just objective around death. Not to say that I hadn't thought about death before, because as a kid we went to a lot of funerals, unfortunately, because my family just, you know, lots of heart disease, lots of strokes, you know, just these, you know, there 1 minute and then gone the next. And I was getting used to that. So when my parents died, after a while, I started to really think about things like, well, who are they? Where are they? And, you know, and one of the answers I got is they're in my mind. They're in my mind all the time. I talk to them every day.
Yeah, that was a great thing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But you had told me, and I just want to frame this. So I want to hear you talk about it. We've talked about it a bunch of times before. But you had made this comparison that your mom is still with you and talking to you, and the lessons are still being heard. And
yes.
And it's no different than when she was alive and she was living in New Jersey and you were living in New York.
Yeah, because we were just on the phone. Like, I'm in Brooklyn and I'm having, you know, me and my mom didn't talk a lot on the phone. Like, we were both very much the same person, very independent people. So, you know, having a phone conversation with her was like just having her in my mind when I see a situation. Actually, at her funeral, because my family left me at the church, that when I went outside, I realized that the limo had driven away. And I was like, wait a minute.
I feel a comic book panel coming.
And I could hear my mother in my head just like, well, I'll be damned. And that's exactly what she was saying. Like, look at my family. They left my daughter at the church. So yeah, it's like, and in those moments, that moment was definitely funny. But I'm like, this is inappropriate to laugh. Like, the inappropriate thoughts of grief when they are in my head, because it's, you know, it's not just my mom, it's my dad too. Like, at his funeral, I had an inappropriate thought because I didn't want to see him in the coffin. And one of the ushers came up to me and asked me if I wanted to see my dad, and I was like, you know, no, thank you. And I don't even know if he knew it was my dad, but my thought was just, I have this character, I think you've seen her, Mean Mama, and she's kind of like you know, like, she's like a devil angel. She's the devil angel trope.
Sarcastic.
She's sarcastic, and, you know, she digs into me and digs into other people. But what she was saying, and I was imagining myself looking into the coffin, and she's just like, $10, he's faking. And that is my dad's humor. That's not even my humor. Like, you know, out the gate, like, that's my father.
Yeah, so that's like the thing. They stay with you, huh? Like, the lessons stay with you. And
even beyond lessons, it's just like, I think the lesson is, it's like, this is our humor, this is our anger, these are our thoughts, this is what we think about you, the world, and some of the stuff I'm probably just making up, or I'm just playing a recording over and over.
Yeah, I mean, it's trippy. It's like, and also, that you had mentioned to me that you also watch TV still with your mom.
Yes, every Saturday. I have Saturday morning movies with my mom. It wasn't planned. It just started to happen. So now I just roll with it. So I'll watch something like an Alfred Hitchcock or not so much Agatha Christie, that she loved that, but just old movies. And like I'm having a conversation with her in my head about what's going on in the movie, and I'm like, this is what I do now. So.
Yeah, so it just makes me think like how they don't really leave, right?
No, and and it's another thing I've noticed ever since we started talking about this was my mom is probably about 35, 40 in my head.
Oh, wow. So that's where she stayed.
That's where she stayed in my mind. I think from the time that, I left for college, that's kind of the image I had from her. Even though she was a little older, that's the image that I have of her in my head. And even in my dreams.
Wow. And your father, the same?
Yes.
Wow, that's trippy.
Yeah. Because I wasn't around them a lot when they were getting older. So I lived on my own and they were in another state. So most of the time it was just phone conversations and, we...
So your mind's eye, the way your mind's eye sees it is like...
they're physically still in the past.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's how they show up in my dreams. So my lucid dream, anytime I see her how could I describe a lucid dream? It's like
kind of half awake. Like it's not like you got one eye open, but yeah,
you could.
You could, but it's kind of like the way I understand lucid dreams is like you're half awake, half conscious, half still in sleep. I don't even know if that makes sense, but
it feels more like waking up in a dream for me, where I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't worn these shoes since I was 13 years old. Oh, I'm dreaming. Like none of this is real. And then I'll see my mom and the first thought I have is like, oh, wow, that's mom. Like, where's she been? I feel like I was supposed to remember something about her. And then in the dream, I'm like, oh, right, she died. She died. And then I'm like trying to think of a polite way to kind of like, hey, like, you died. Do you know that you died? Like,
but is that lucid though?
Oh, I know I'm lucid. I'm thinking about ways to not shock my mom. Right. I'm still dreaming, but I'm like in control of the situation.
Okay.
And
there's conscious, like moving around in your brain.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
See, I never have dreams like that anymore. Like, never. I don't think I ever had a dream that I felt like I was in control.
Oh no.
In control?
They're fun. They can also be horrible, but they're fun most of the time. But the thing that I've come up with is to ask her, how are you here? And anytime I ask her that, she never gives me an answer. She distracts me with other things. So that's just, an interesting experience. So I don't feel like it's a grim thing. I'm just like exploring, like what's going on? Because I don't know anything.
So no, I get that, but it's been a few years now, right?
Yes, that was the date.
No, don't say the date.
Okay, well,
but it's been a couple of years.
It's been a few years, yeah.
Do you feel like distance growing between you and them, your memory of them, or your?
No, not. I don't know if it's unique to me, but no. I just feel like there is something that is gone. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm finally getting used to them not being here on the planet. Except for the other day when I was punching into my jobs. I was punching my job's code and I started to dial my mother's phone number. So I don't know where that came from.
Who knows? So, somewhere in your brain.
Somewhere in my brain, it was still like, oh, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, no, I'm at work. So
another thing I want to touch on.
Yes.
Is like, the real physical effects of like grief. Mm-hmm. I think that's like, because there's nothing tangible about grief that we can fix. You kind of have to go through it. Yeah. But there are like physical, tangible effects of grief, and it's something just to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. So some of the symptoms of grief, physical symptoms of grief, is fatigue, headache, nausea, restlessness, upset stomach, heart palpitations, weak muscles or joint pain, tightness in your chest or throat. And that almost like sounds like fear, a whole bunch of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I've definitely had tightness in my chest and heart palpitations.
Yeah, that's a lot. So it's like, it kind of behooves you to keep an eye on those things too. Like, it almost like, it's like you can allow you can actually get sick, yourself. So it's like important to kind of keep that balance. There's something I have here, it's called the 3 C's of grief. And it's challenge, change, and connection. So in challenge, recognize that grief is not linear and that you can expect ups and downs. So, that's that's some of the things you can watch out for. And change, and the next thing is change. Allow yourself time to move through each stage of grief at your own pace. And again, that goes to like how grief, the stages of grief are different for everyone. So that's a kind of a testament to that. And connection. Consider connecting with others or seeking support through counseling or books. So again, the 3 C's are, it's a simple thing: challenge, change, and connection. But if you're going through grief right now, it can be kind of a little bit of a lifeline to kind of look into those 3 different things in whatever way you feel comfortable doing. So again, the 3 C's of grief: challenge, change, and connection. Just something to think about as you're listening to this pod about grief and loss. And
yeah, well, I think the connection part is, because I'm thinking back as you're saying those words, and I'm like, it's definitely a change, definitely a challenge, but connection was up and down, and I saw how that affected me and my heart palpitations.
In a positive or a negative way?
Both. So I had friends like you that came through and helped me with things that I couldn't do. Like, I don't drive, so I couldn't run over to, my mom's area that easily. So it was nice to have that kind of support. And also your wife's support, to have that. But there were a couple of friends that just disappeared, just couldn't handle it. And
it's heavy.
Yeah, and I know it is.
It's heavy. Nobody really wants to be. Oh God, no one wants to be around it. I get it.
Yes.
I get it. You know what I mean?
And to circle back to your traditions of, one tradition that I really love the idea is, I think it's called sitting Shiva.
Oh yeah.
Where it's is it a week long?
Gosh, probably should have did research on that, but I don't think it may be a week long. It's definitely more than a day.
Yeah, and
it's after the burial.
It's after the burial. It's it's like an ongoing repast. And I was like, I would have loved to have that. Just people show up, bring food,
and just
cover the mirrors, because I am gonna look terrible. There's probably a spiritual reason behind that. I don't know what it is, but that would be my reason. Just keep bringing me food.
I mean, I guess we can't pick and choose how we want to do that.
I would like to adopt that too.
And that's why it's important to think about this stuff. You know what I mean? How do you want to do it? I know there's something that I want to do specifically. My brothers, they know to do this. And anybody my brothers are around, they're gonna let them know I want to have a Klingon funeral. If you don't know what a Klingon funeral is where all the men, the warriors.
You're a nerd.
Oh, look who's talking. But it's when all the warriors get around the body and scream up to the sky. The last warrior scream, and then they say, do what you will with the body. You know what I mean? I definitely want that. So all the men in my family, you know what to do. My brothers already know.
He's dead, Jim.
but it also, my experience, with my cousin passing, I also experienced probably the most beautiful way you can have a funeral and do a send-off. My cousins are very talented musicians out in Nashville, and they were professional studio musicians, touring musicians. They played with all kinds of people, and the first day, we literally buried him put him in the earth. The next day, we had 300 people show up for like a concert. He was part of 2 bands over 40 years, and 20 people must have came up and played music, and they played his stuff. His brother stood in his parts, his guitar solo parts, and whoever couldn't, it was just a beautiful thing. And for about 5-6 hours, there was this music going on the whole time. 300 people, family, friends, people I'd never seen before, obviously, and it was like the most amazing send-off. And I spoke to his brother this week, and he was like, it was amazing to just be that all you guys came out and everything, the way it happened.
Yeah, that's
so it got me thinking, like, I don't think I want to have a funeral where I'm like in a pine box and people come just walking by looking at me, and I don't think I want that.
Filled with embalming fluid.
Yeah, I want a DJ at my funeral.
You want a DJ?
Maybe some live music.
Yeah, you should.
Maybe a dress code, not all in black, maybe all in white, something different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I want to do that. In fact, I know I don't want to do that. So there's a lot of different ways nowadays to do it. An interesting one that I saw was a pod burial, where your body is kind of wrapped around a tree.
Yeah.
And I'll put it on the screen, wrapped around a tree, and then you become a tree. Yeah. That sounds amazing. Better than decomposing in a box.
Underneath some stones, with land full of stones that could be housing or something.
Yeah. It just feels like a more natural way of like just giving back, taking that energy and just giving it back. So like, I think there's more to think about than the way we've been doing it for the last 100 years or 200 years or whatever it is.
Definitely, because I told you how much I spent, and going back to your talk about grief, and there's things that it's not suggested that you do, like make big decisions. Like when somebody dies, if you're the one that's planning the funeral, you have to make decisions. I did not make the best decisions because I had a lot of people in my ear. And I gave the suggestion of cremation. And my family was appalled. They were like, "You're gonna cremate your mother?" And I could understand how they felt. I mean, like, there's a history of, I understand that there's a history of why they would want that. But for me, I'm like, okay, who's gonna help me pay for this?
Yeah, right.
That was my question in the moment.
Yeah, but that's the other aspect of it, right? Like, they're out here getting you. They're
getting you because they know, wow, that New York heat is coming on. They're getting you because they know that, most people don't want to see the whole process. And I didn't see the whole process. Right. I saw some things, but not all. Right. But that's, the funeral home kind of guards you from, like, oh, don't look behind this curtain. You don't want to see.
Right. And then they use guilt too. Like,
oh yeah, to upsell you things that you don't necessarily need. You're not gonna put your mother in that little pine box. You want the grand. It's got wheels and sparkles. Like
you want the Egyptian sarcophagus.
Yes, and you're already going through grief, and you're trying to like, oh right, mom would. Oh, and I'm a terrible son or daughter. Like. So it's, I ended up spending over $10,000. And I'm like, every time I think back on that, I'm like, I should have done research. But that's an aspect of it. That nobody tells you about. So if you're going to do it, and if you got to do it, you should do it your own way, I feel like. And there's other ways that you can do it that are cheaper, cleaner, protecting the environment, protecting the person that's doing it, because even like embalming is not great for the person's health. Neither is cremation, because cremation is a lot of chemicals, like being burned, Right. So it's I wish I had more knowledge, and that's why I don't think something like this, like talking about this, is a bad idea or is grim, because I'm like, if I can save you, at least $8,000. I've done my job. I've learned my lesson, and I'm passing it on.
Yeah, and I mean,
So-
and it's I don't think, I think it's a healthy thing to think about, and also getting your affairs in order, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
How important that is. I mean, I've seen families torn apart over property and money, and not even that much money. It doesn't take a lot, so it's important, and it's something to think about. And if you care about your family or the people you're around, it's definitely in their interest that you make that as smooth and easy as possible, you know what I mean?
That's what I'm working on right now. Like, trying to get my affairs in order and see how I can do that.
You know I want that painting though, right?
Which painting? Oh, there's a few that you've pointed out.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, I know the one, but then I'll think about which.
Not that I'm waiting for you to die or nothing like that.
Oh no, but you don't want my family to be like, this is ours now. I don't think they would do that. But if I write down, but yeah. Oh, speaking of paintings, there's a painting that that's been in my house ever since I was a child. My mom painted it, and she was an FIT student, and she wanted to be a dress designer. But, in school, she was doing these paintings. That was one of my mom's paintings from the late 60s and 70s. She's an FIT student. And I had seen this painting all my life. And as a kid, it's a city street. And, looking at it, I was like, I can't wait to be an artist in New York. I can't wait to live there. And, I'd have that painting now sitting on my drafting table.
Right.
And my cousin asked me to look for some photos of her dad from an old photo album. And I'm looking through, and I found the reference of where my mom painted it from. And I was like, oh, wow, it's a nice New York City photo from the, 70s, 60s. And I'm looking at it, and I was like, wait a minute, let me Google map this. And don't you know, it's like a half a block away from my house, like where I live. And I looked down the street, and I was like, that's the whole painting is like where I go to restaurants, where I do my shopping, gym, and all that stuff. So I live in my mom's painting.
Wow.
Twilight Zone-y.
That's awesome. That's kind of awesome and scary and spooky at the same time.
I like it.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap there. Just a takeaway. I think it's important that death and it is something to think about. I know it sounds crazy, but it's important how you want to be remembered, how you want to celebrate that in your life, and how you want to respect and celebrate others. So
and protect your family.
And protect your family. That's a big thing too.
Yeah.
I've seen families torn apart for property and little bits of money. So it's important to get your stuff in order.
Yeah, don't tear your family apart.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Thank you for listening to Six String Therapy. I'm DJ Mayday.
And I'm Jennifer.
Peace. Till next time.
Bye.
Oh, wait. One thing I wanted to give you that I had in my wallet for about 2 weeks now.
My money?
No damn money for you. And like a tribute to my cousin.
Guitar Los. Hell yeah. Ooh, and it's marble.
Yep, it's cool as shit.
That's really cool.